too dark.
Yeah.
I mean, it's you need to.
It's backward.
It's not.
Do you go live? Okay.
Yeah, you need to. You can't even see him. It's so dark.
Can we move it so that Greg and I are both in the video? So it's not just me?
Well, yeah, you should do it.
Yeah, that works. Is it bright enough?
Okay.
Okay. So I'm on.
Okay. Okay.
All right. It looks.
Okay. So, Randy.
Good.
Do you want to give?
And I can tell you if
Yeah, I
anyone.
mean, I just, nothing formal prepared, but just wanted to participate today to answer any questions or to frankly, just continue to listen to what the community might have to say about the project. You know, we've created what we think is a really great project. I think that there's a desire in the comp plan for more hotels. The city budget's looking for it. Developers
How much revenue would this bring to the city?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We just ran what's called a STAR report that looks at the revenue that's coming from nine other local hotels that are of the same sort of style, caliber, level that we're targeting. And based on that information, which tells you what the average room rate is, what the occupancy rates are, the number of nights that those rooms are occupied over the course of a year, all of this data, you
By the way, you should probably identify yourself.
Oh,
I forgot
sure,
that.
no problem. Randy Popp, architect. I'm the lead entitlement consultant for the Marriott Hotel, and there's an architect of record, Access GFA, that's working for our development partner, who is T2 Hospitality out of Newport Beach.
Okay. And just to be clear, we invited how many people to this?
So this event was posted on Facebook next door, and it was invited. We invited basically everyone who had emailed the council about the project initially.
Okay.
Yes.
Trying to be open government here.
Yes.
Okay.
Right, it's great, and I think I'll just commend you for using social media in this way. It's something that we need to do more and more of, because it makes it so much more accessible to people who otherwise might not be able to participate.
And so we have a call-in number, right?
Yes, we do have a call-in number. Yeah,
number.
and
people can post questions on this too, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Terrific.
Okay.
Yeah, so hopefully people will participate.
There's only one variable.
If not, happy to still share the
Is that
information.
people participate?
Oh, okay.
It's still available after the fact. And
Yes.
Yeah.
So, in fact, why don't you give a little bit? I know you're presenting, or someone from T2 is presenting on Monday, right?
Correct.
But you could give maybe a spiel in case anyone watches this after we're done with it, just to.
Yeah. So the goal here was to create a hotel project that would be a benefit both for the developer, of course, but also the right type of project for the city of Palo Alto. And your question about what would be the revenue for the city of Palo Alto is, I think, a really relevant question. And what we're trying to do is be conservative in our number, because what we'd like to do is achieve better than that. But our conservative estimate is by the third year, when the market sort of stabilizes for this hotel and it gets into a pattern of, rather than really rapid growth, sort of a 2% growth each year, and it stabilizes for the rates and all of those other things, that we'll be generating somewhere in the neighborhood of about $3.7 million for revenue for the city of Palo Alto a year.
A year, wow, okay. Yeah, we're having, I think, about $3-point-something million shortfall. So. Yeah,
I actually noticed that in there was a Palo Alto Weekly article not too long ago about a pretty serious budget shortfall, and it turns out that the revenue that this one hotel generates just erases that shortfall.
So it might be good, because I think a lot of people may not be very familiar with the project. Maybe you could just describe the project at a high level, just so that for folks who watch us later can kind of.
Yeah, sure.
Actually, let me move this phone so it doesn't get caught on the.
Yeah.
So here's one. Just bring them on.
Okay.
So the project site is on San Antonio Road, between Middlefield and Leghorn. It's actually two parcels that are going to be combined together. One of them is a site that was originally a mortuary building, and it's been recognized as being an example, albeit not a very good one, of mid-century modern architecture in the city. And behind that is an office building that was constructed years later. Next door to that is some Quonset huts that house some other small businesses. Currently, all of those are vacant. All the tenants have moved on and found other space successfully, and so we were glad to hear about that. And the roughly 1.6-ish acre site is zoned commercial service, and within the commercial service zone, you are permitted to build hotels as it's a regularly permitted use. Hotels have some special zoning constraints that other projects in the CS zone don't have. One of those is that they're allowed to go to a full 2.0 FAR. And in fact, I think you were part of the discussion recently at the comp plan review where the council is actually encouraging going even farther than that to a 2.5. And I think that that's a pretty clear indication that we're trying to incentivize hotel development in the city. The revenue that comes from that is tremendous. And the type of project that a hotel doesn't have the kind of impact many other projects have. For example, if this was a housing site and you were to take advantage of the density bonuses and other things that any smart developer would do, the traffic that project would generate would be more severe.
So tell us, why does this need to go in front of council if it's already permitted?
Yeah, so here's the little caveat on this. The existing building that I mentioned that was
Actually, just one quick. So is there people down there?
What?
Are there people down there?
I'll go check.
Okay. And also have the sign-in sheets.
Okay.
yeah. So the existing building that was a mortuary is just about 50 years old. And as a result of that, the city thought that it would be prudent to do a historic resource evaluation analysis for that site. The outcome of that, based on the city's consultant, was that there was some modest value to this building. And so that essentially triggered a full EIR process. And so rather than having a mitigated negative declaration for this project, we went to a full-blown EIR and have spent a year in the EIR process studying not just the impact of removal of this building, but also traffic and noise and shade and shadow and aesthetics and all of the other things that EIRs are meant to evaluate. And so we were very interested in the outcome of that process, and part of what will happen at council Monday night is that EIR was certified. We've gone to 4 architecture review board hearings. We've had a discussion at council already. The early discussion at council was very positive. Council really was very interested in this project and encouraged us at the FAR that we were proposing, which is roughly the limit of the FAR for the site.
So there's no exceptions per se that you guys asked for.
No exceptions. The real reason that this has to go to council is because the one impact that came out of the EIR all of the elements of the EIR that were studied resulted in a less than significant impact. Right, the traffic, everything was less than significant, with the exception of the removal of this building, which is unavoidable. Right, we have to tear the building down in order to build the project, and so the city council, because this building has some historic value potential, needs to essentially vote for a statement of overriding concern that says that while this building has some value, it's more valuable to the city to take that down and replace it with a different type of project. And so that's something that the planning department or the architecture review board or others don't do on their own. Anytime a project has that level of decision making, it's referred to council immediately.
So Walter, how many emails came in for this?
Okay, so we've received about, I think it's around 20 because there are some repeats.
Okay, and were most of them for or against this?
So most have been against.
Okay. When you say most, what percentage would you say?
I would say that so last night I went through each email when I did a re-invitation, and I think I saw 2 people who actively spoke out for. Now I would say
two spoke for it and 18 were against.
I would say a caveat to this is that with most issues that come before the council, especially developments, you usually see that more people reach out against because it's the interruption to the status quo than for or something, or other projects like this. But that's 18-2 is still shows that I think you do have more citizens probably against this, and that's what I like the Palo Alto online.
And where do those people live? Do you know?
I'm not exactly sure.
Okay.
I do have. There's been some people who have been particularly outspoken, and I would assume that they, and they were early. I don't want to name anyone like by name because this is going to go on the internet. So I think those.
It's actually all public record. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So I think there are some people who have been more attentive who live near it, and they were all the people who lived near it seemed, or all the people who, it was my impression that they were really outspoken for this issue were against.
Okay.
There were some people who commented, but it was later, and there was no indication that they lived near it.
And so, Randy, what's your thoughts? Why do you think people are? Why do you think we got these kind of emails?
I have to say I'm not really sure. I've done this for a long time, and as people know, I was the project director for the JCC building, which was a very large and very complex development, and there were certainly people who were for it and people who were against it. But the people who were against that project had very specific issues that were related to the project. The issues that I'm hearing the public come out and speak about, and the ARB actually addressed this when they spoke, the issues that they're coming to speak about are not issues that the project is causing, right? The EIR was very clear. There is a less than significant impact that this project causes. The number of cars that exceed the existing number of cars that come in and out of the site, based on the current use, when it was very active, versus what the hotel will be, it's 88 cars at peak increase. I mean, you almost can't measure that. It's one more car every 70 seconds or something.
Sure.
So there there's these subtleties of what the project is, and I acknowledge there's a reality to what these people are experiencing along San Antonio Road, and I've told people I drive that road every day. My kids go to school on that road, and it's a common place for me to be. There are times of day when I go there and the traffic is bad, and I get that. But there are also times of day that I go there and there's no traffic at all.
Sure.
I just drove up and down that road 3 times this morning, no traffic at all. And so I think that the issue is really, it's more of a regional issue that has to do with where people are coming and going from, and the fact that that road feeds directly to 101.
So, Walter, in the emails, what are some of the issues that people brought up?
So a lot of people, mostly just traffic, because I think as you've faced, that's probably been the main objection. I do want to say I think we have a viewer now.
Okay.
Joan Bates-Zuri.
Did you have a question?
She has a question about the technicalities of the live at first.
Okay.
But I've been in correspondence with her.
Okay.
And I think, I'm wondering whether she can call in, because she had a bunch of concerns about the EIR.
Yeah, why don't you give her the call-in number and let her call in?
Yeah, and I'm not prepared to answer specifics about the EIR.
Oh, okay.
I'm not the legal expert, and
we can do what you can.
The EIR stands for itself, and it's been vetted very carefully.
Appreciate you make yourself available.
Yeah.
So.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'll just offer that some of the other people have spoken about the size of the project, the mass of it.
But it's within the FAR limits.
It is within the FAR limit. There's certainly opportunities to shape a building. And one of the questions the ARB had initially was, why haven't we moved the building to the center of the site, pulled away from the edges more? And the answer is that we studied that pretty carefully. And we studied trying to get circulation around the project and do other things. We showed all of that at a couple of hearings ago. And the result of doing that is that the FAR drops dramatically. You just can't get the FAR on the site. And the key is to get the FAR, because that's what develops the TOT. That's what makes the product successful.
So the ARB, what was their opinion of this project?
So at the end of the day, they approved it, right? They had some initial concerns about the mass and the scale. Early on, we had 301 rooms. We shaved, I think, 7 rooms off of that. Most of those were taken off of the front of the building. So rather than having a 50-foot high frontage right on San Antonio Road, we now have a building that's actually lower than the greenhouse buildings that are across the street, as it immediately fronts on San Antonio. And San Antonio is an interesting area. It's one of these special setback zones in the city. And so where you'd see typically a CS parcel that has no setback and can be right against the sidewalk, this has an extra 24 feet. So 24 feet is the width of a 2-lane road. It's a big area.
Sure.
And so in addition to the sidewalk space and the right-of-way, we have this extra 24 feet before the building even starts. And then what we did is we have a 3-story element that is pretty controlled in terms of its mass. And then the building steps back pretty significantly from there. And the developer made a choice to do that in response to comments that we'd heard and other things. It's much less efficient to build a building that way, a lot more expensive,
Sure.
and we're losing rooms. But that was a decision that was made to try and address some of these comments and to really try to.
So can you speak a little bit about some of the community outreach you guys have done so far?
So we very early on had a community meeting. It was conducted with participation of primarily the residents of the greenhouse development. I actually wasn't in attendance at that meeting.
How did you
the
guys do that
development
outreach?
team.
How did you guys?
We noticed the whole area with
Okay.
flyers.
Flyers.
I think we sent out about 300 flyers, something like that, and it was well attended.
Do you know how many people attended?
I want to say that there were, if I remember right, there were 20 or 25 people that showed up at that
That's
meeting.
actually pretty good.
Yeah,
So-
it was great, and
Yeah.
I think that the development team was glad to hear what people's concerns were. We had an initial project proposal in at the time. We made some adjustments after that, and have continued to adjust to the point we are today, where where it stands today is that the ARB approved it on the 1st, and tomorrow night is the council hearing where we're very much hoping that we'll move the project forward, because it is a totally conforming project and the EIR shows no impact.
So how are we doing on the?
Yeah,
Technical
on
side.
the last she checked in, she was logging off and trying to sign back in.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, I'm sorry about this. It's sort of our
First time.
Yeah.
This is
That's fine, I'm happy.
our maiden voter.
it
Boy,
worked
I'm-
much better
I'm a-
last week.
I'm a patient guy about this stuff. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
It's not a problem.
Let's see. What other issues that have you heard about that people have had with this project?
That's really it.
That's it. Okay.
People have been concerned about traffic.
Okay.
And there are other elements of the traffic, right? There's how does an emergency vehicle get down the street if the traffic is bad? So, what we did as part of the discussion is the transportation team in the city of Palo Alto vets the project with fire and police to see whether or not there's an issue with getting emergency acts down the street. They've all said it's not an issue. What happens is people pull away and they just move through the center, and they can still get emergency vehicles in. There was some concern about that. I think one of the things that's changed about San Antonio Road since we first started the project, and initially we were offering to fund it, but the city has taken care of it, was the traffic signal optimization project for San Antonio Road is in place now. And I've actually personally noticed a difference in how the flow works there. It's one of, if I remember right, it's one of 2 streets in Palo Alto now that has this interconnected intelligence on the traffic signals that alters the signal timing over the course of the day based on flow. And so, as that works longer and the algorithms get better, it'll get smarter.
Sure. Okay. So, if you were, and I don't know if you have the sense, but if you were to get a sense of the community, right? The community is buying into this project. What would we still got the emails, right?
Right.
But obviously we made a lot of outreach to Nextdoor, Facebook, email directly, and never showed up, right? So
Right.
So
There's a lot of people that aren't concerned.
yeah, so that's
Right.
So what's your guess? If you were to guess, like how many people are like against versus for? I know maybe you haven't done a formal survey, but what's your
respectfully, I'm not going to answer the question that you've asked, right? I think that that's a hard thing for me to just respond to. What I can tell you is that a project like this reduces vehicle miles traveled, and the revenue that it brings to the city improves our ability to create better infrastructure, and it gives us flexibility for the council to make decisions that are regional decisions that affect all the population. And while there's a small group of residents who are clearly impacted and are clearly upset about this and feel like this is really focused in their neighborhood. It's important to me as an architect who thinks about the fabric of our whole city to think about how things work and how we can make them work better. And if we have people who are looking for a hotel space and they're traveling a long distance to get to and from those hotels versus having hotels proximate to where their business is, it's better, right? And so one of the things that the EIR studied was vehicle miles traveled. And I'm not going to get the numbers exactly right, but the rough answer here is that the office use that was in place had roughly a 34.4 miles traveled per employee number. And the hotel, when you put the TDM measures into place that we're planning to use, and these are not extreme or unusual TDM measures, it's what sort of become the de facto standard, which is that the ownership of the hotel provides passes for their employees and simple things that are easy to do and easy to maintain over time and not challenging for the employees to manage either. That the VMTs for the hotel are in the 19 and a half range. So it's a really, it's a huge reduction in vehicle miles traveled as a result of this type of use versus what was there before. And so things like that, right? And you look at over the course of 25 years, having $115, $112 million worth of revenue from a project like this. What other project generates that kind of revenue for the city? Sure. Right? This is critical to do. And one of the things that I'll explain, and I did talk to the ARB about this, is that
what was the vote on the ARB?
The ARB was Q Kim was recused. He and I did a little bit of work together, so he respectfully recused. And Alex Liu was a dissenting vote. He had issues with he was concerned about how successful the planting along the edges would be, and that the circular drive that we have might not be large enough to manage the traffic. And then he also mentioned, he still wasn't thrilled with the massing of the building. He'd like to see it more to the center, but everybody else said, yeah, it conforms, and there's no reason, they can make the findings, and they approved it. So I think the benefit, the benefit regionally of a project like this is significant. And when you look at what has occurred in our city, and the development that's occurred, the shift in office space and other things, and number of jobs that we have here over time, the Hyatt Ricky's project, which was removed from the inventory in around June of 2005, from that date to today, even with the addition of the Hilton Homewood Suites and the Hilton Garden Inn and the Clement and a few other projects that have been built, Ricky's was a significant number of rooms. And so we are still 77 rooms short of the Hyatt Ricky's peak.
I see.
And so this project will finally push us over that threshold and a little beyond.
So, did you guys have questions?
Well, a lot of people are concerned about traffic. Is there any response from you about that?
So we addressed that a little bit. I think you might have been out of the room, but we did talk about that a little bit.
Any other things?
Walter, do you have any?
I don't. Sorry, I'm straightening out with someone who really was having trouble with the live, and I'm getting them to call in.
Okay, so in minutes we'll have someone. This is exciting.
Greg, is there any concern that you have about the project? That you might be able to provide some more information around so that you can
I guess
be more informed as you come to the council hearing?
Let's talk about the ARB's concern, right? So there's one dissenter, right? Alex's.
Right.
So can you talk more details about that concern?
Yeah, sure. So the first was the issue of the massing, right? And I understand his position on
and
that.
You guys went through there 5 times, right?
Four. We actually had 4 hearings at
Okay.
A study session and then 3 formal hearings.
And was there a lot of community feedback at that time?
There was, but I would say it was a pretty consistent group of people talking about pretty consistent issues that we're still talking about.
Okay.
So it's not the the dialogue hasn't changed very much. We've made some pretty significant changes to the project to try and address those as much as we can. But so Alex's issue was, first I think I'll address the massing. These aren't in particular order, but the massing. And as I mentioned, we studied other styles of hotel building. This is a dual brand concept. It's a Marriott Courtyard and a Marriott AC. And these two hotels will share amenities, share parking, build one pool. They both use it.
Sure.
People can go back and forth between the two hotels. So the desire to have independent branding is important to recognize. And creating a central courtyard that's a little bit protected in terms of how a hotel works for a site like this is important.
Is someone calling into that? I don't hear music anymore. No, it is.
Okay. So, I think we've sort of addressed the issue of the massing.
Okay.
And I don't quite know how to resolve his concern, but the other three ARB members weren't hesitating about that any
What's
longer.
the basis for the ARB's decision to give it a thumbs up or not? How do they?
So they have findings, right? There are a group of findings that the ARB makes, and I would describe as you know, right? I was chair of the architecture review board for a number of years, and I'm very familiar with the process. The findings that the ARB makes are focused on character and quality primarily. There are some other elements of it, but it's really about character and quality. And the idea that a building fits into its context and it serves the purpose for which the zoning has identified it should serve, that it's a benefit to the community. Right? Those are some of the criteria.
Sure.
And also that it uses materials that are of high quality and that the building speaks of its purpose. And these are easy to find in the zoning regulations, so I'm not going to parrot them all.
Sure.
But the three ARB members that voted yes all were confident in their ability to make the findings for this. And I think that one of the important things to recognize about hotels, unique from other CS elements, is that
CS
in the commercial service zone, right? The commercial service zone.
Other people watching may not
Right,
know.
right.
So.
In the commercial service zone, you're allowed to have a commercial building that is 0.4 FAR. So if you had a site that was 1, you can have 40% of that square footage dedicated to commercial space. If you do a mixed-use project, you can add another 0.6 to that, so you can get to a full 1.0. If you were to do essentially what people call a residential-only project, you're still required to have a 0.15 commercial. So the minimum site you could build is 0.4. If you did a minimum residential project, you'd be at 0.75, and a full mixed-use project would be at 1.0. And a hotel today can be at 2.0, and it's about to become 2.5. And so the discussion about context kind of goes out the window. Right? There's no way to be fully contextual when your project can be twice as large as anything else that's around it. And the challenge then is to try and integrate it.
Walter, how's it going? Is it still?
She hasn't
Responded. Okay, maybe she gave up. Okay.
Well, the challenge is how do you integrate it? Yeah. And so that's the major change that we made. And I think we were trying to address Alex's concerns, and certainly it satisfied Winford, Peter Balte, and Robert Guyer to the point where they were able to approve the project. But really terracing the front of the building and peeling off layers, pushing the top of it back in conjunction with this 24-foot special setback, and really doing some beautiful landscaping, including public benches and places for people to stop and sit and go into the little cafe that we're going to have and grab a coffee if they want. It's not a destination restaurant in any way, but it's a place where if you needed a cup of water or you wanted to get a soda, you could stop in.
Sure. And
so, based on those criteria, the ARB makes its finding, and
just out of curiosity, so for San Antonio, okay, you said this is going to increase. You said 80 cars.
It increases by roughly, let's say, 85 or 88 cars
88
from what the current use is
88 cars a day
at the peak.
at the peak, an hour,
Peak is a little longer than an hour, but
like a day part.
Yeah.
Okay. So
the idea is that at the morning commute and the evening commute,
Okay.
which is when peak traffic
okay.
occurs,
So that's
what's
2
the
hour,
impact going to be?
those 2 hour periods.
It's a roughly 2 hour period.
Okay. So, what is, just to give people perspective, what is the total traffic during that period of time, roughly? During those peak periods?
I haven't
No.
studied all the
Okay.
numbers that are in the EIR that carefully. I'd be afraid to
But
suggest it. But listen, we know that there's some traffic on San Antonio.
well, I've been on San Antonio.
Right.
It's a really busy street. So,
It is at certain times of day.
Yeah.
Right. And other times of day, it's just not.
Yeah.
And so,
I just want to.
I get it.
I guess what I'm trying to get at is like, so that those 88 cars, what percentage of the traffic is that? Is that like 0.1%? Is it?
It's not measurable.
Oh, not measurable. Okay.
Right? I mean, again, if you suggest that there are 88 cars over the peak time period, that means one car coming out of the site. I think it's one car every 70 seconds or something like that. In the course of multiple traffic signals happening and all these cars moving through San Antonio Road, one more car.
So you're saying that people would be challenged to know that, like the before and after.
I know that seems really hard to rationalize, but this is why we do an analysis. This is why we study it, and we're not doing an analysis that says, what's the potential impact here. It's a real number.
Sure.
And we get the numbers because we have other hotel projects that we're comparing it to, and we know how people come and go. We know what the traffic patterns are. We know that at 3 a.m. we're going to have peak parking demand at the hotel site, and how many cars we need to be able to accommodate on this. A science. It's not an art form in the way some of these other things are. It's really very scientific and predictable.
Okay. And so, so there's a massing, and then Alex's other issues were.
So Alex's other issue, there were two. One of them was centered around some of the landscaping, and I very respectfully don't understand why he had an issue. Right? We've described some planting at that edge that grows in a very narrow space. It can grow up against a rock outcropping with almost no root area at all. We have a 6-foot zone between our property line and the building garage that this will be planted in. Of course, roots don't stop at the property line; they'll go across, and so it's a wider area than that available. But it's also it's 6 feet wide, but it's the length of the property, and so roots don't grow in a ball, right? Roots grow where the opportunity for water comes, and so they'll move just fine. And so, we have a very capable landscape architect in the Gazzardo partnership. Gary Lehman does a great job and is well respected in the city of Palm, and has said very clearly that these trees will get to be 40 feet tall, and they won't struggle to get to that height. And so that kind of screening is really valuable along an edge. And so, respectfully, I don't understand what Alex's issue was with that. The other and sort of final issue he had that was initially raised by Wynn Firth, but I think she became satisfied that we had resolved it, was this circular drive that we have. So as you enter the property, there's a circular drive that has multiple lanes with access to the lobby, load in and load out areas, so that people can get out of their car. Their baggage will be taken by a valet. The car will be taken by a valet immediately. We have staging area that's immediately behind that, so that the valet can shuttle the cars off quickly and then eventually park them. So Alex's concern was that we just didn't have enough room in that circle to make this work, and that we would be backing cars up onto San Antonio Road. We agreed to a condition of approval that says that we just won't do that, and that we'll put in whatever methods we have to put in to solve that. But the last thing I would say about that is just that this is a team of developers who builds hotels. That's what they do. They're experts at
What's the
this.
capacity of the circle?
I think we can have somewhere in the neighborhood of about 12 or 14 cars in that circle, something like that. If it was like gridlock, but we're not going to let it get like that, right? What happens is
And it's a 2-lane circle.
it's a multiple lane circle, and so people can move around each other.
Just to give people perspective, you compare that circle versus the Four Seasons circle in East Palo Alto. Which circle is bigger?
It's about the size of that.
Same circle. Oh, wow, it's pretty big.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's the way you design these things. is you look at
It's the same size as the Four Seasons.
it's just about the same size.
Well, which one has more rooms?
I don't remember how many rooms the Four Seasons has offhand. The
It's a.
I mean, I'm just sort of visually
Okay.
thinking about what that space looks like, and I think ours is about the same, maybe a little bit. We're just talking about the width of it, right? It's not the length of it, because the one at the Four Seasons is quite long.
Oh, I'm talking about the diameter of the circle.
Yeah, I think it's about the same.
Same
And
diameter? What?
the reason that the circles get designed to that size is the city of Palo Alto has a fire truck that you have to be able to accommodate.
Well, this is an EPA.
In Palo Alto,
Oh,
right?
okay.
The city, yeah,
Oh, I
the
see.
city of Palo Alto has a
Okay.
fire truck that is a big truck,
I see. It has to be
right?
Oh, I
And
see.
it's a big truck because it's designed to be able to reach up to a 50-foot roof, right? It's a specific. And so we talked to the fire department. Our civil engineers are able to run vehicle movement diagrams that show how the wheels will turn and how the thing gets in and out. And so we design a circle that allows that to get into
I
our
see.
site.
So,
And that's a big vehicle.
so the Four Seasons, how many floors is that? It's like 5 or 6? Seven stories. Okay, 7 stories. So this is a much lower height building.
I think that they have more rooms in that building
Yeah.
than we have in each of our individual buildings.
Okay.
It's hard to compare and contrast.
No, I'm just trying to see like if so Alex's concern is that there's not enough capacity on that circle, but the circle is the same size as the Four Seasons. The Four Seasons is a bigger hotel.
Yeah.
Right. And
Right.
University is probably a busier street than
Right.
San Antonio. I'm not sure. Is that true?
I think it is.
Okay. I don't know.
But
But okay.
University certainly has more traffic than San Antonio does.
Okay.
No doubt about that. I think the difference is that cars that would go in and out of the Four Seasons wouldn't back up onto University Avenue because there's that long
Oh yeah.
drive
Yeah.
up to
Oh, I
this,
see.
right?
That's true.
And so Alex's concern was that cars might
Oh,
stack
that's a good point.
as they're trying to get in and get onto San Antonio Road. But again, this is a developer who builds, they've got 20 projects going on at any one time. And they know what they're doing, and
Sure.
they're certain that this just won't be an issue.
So
She,
No one?
she gave up.
she gave up. Okay. And said there's no one on.
Well, I think we supposedly have one person, but I don't think it doesn't really add up
Okay.
that they
Well, if
wouldn't
anyone's
say.
on the audience and they want to ask questions, we're nearing the end of our time here, and so if someone has a question, they should
Yeah.
post it or call in soon. Otherwise, it will be
Yeah.
ending.
Or they can come to the council meeting.
Or they can come to
Right?
the council
Feel
meeting.
free to join
Absolutely.
us at the council meeting tomorrow night. This item will be heard at 6 p.m. And I'm certainly encouraging anyone from the community to come and speak to their concerns and let us know what their issues are.
Now, you actually kind of live kind of near here, right?
I do.
Yeah. So why don't you talk a little bit for the?
Yeah, I mean, I live next door to Monroe Park. I've lived in that area a long time. My kids, all 3 kids, have gone to the Gideon Hausner Jewish Day School that's right smack in the middle of San
So
Antonio
if
Road.
there were impacts, you would actually be personally impacted as well.
Of course.
Potentially.
Yeah, of course. And not just because my kids go to school in that area, but because I'm a Palo Alto resident. A South Palo Alto
How
resident.
many years?
I grew up in Los Altos Hills and went to Gunn and Terman and Nixon and local schools. And so I've been in this area a very long time. My wife and I bought our house.
So did the windows switch?
I think we lost something.
Is it?
Oh, really?
No. Is it still going?
It's been a little spotty on my
Oh.
side.
It
So
looks like
oh, really? Oh,
No, just maybe flip it back. I see the
oh,
camera's
you had
on.
a notification. That's what it
Yeah,
is.
notification.
Maybe it's flipped back.
So
I think so. Okay.
Yeah.
yeah, so I think let me just adjust this
Oh
one.
yeah, that's a good point.
I think the answer to your question is I've lived in Palo Alto for in the neighborhood of 20 years now. I've been doing projects as an architect in Palo Alto for almost 30 years. Some of the smaller and really nice little projects, and some of the really, I think the Toby Correct Campus for Jewish Life that includes multifamily residences, the Jewish Community Center. It also included the Altair multifamily housing, 103 units, and the Alta Torre bridge housing project that's 56 units. It was one of the largest and most complicated entitlement projects the city's ever undertaken. Very complicated planned community zone, and I'm proud of the work that I did there. Not everybody likes that building, but I certainly get a lot more really positive comments about it, and I'm always happy about that. And I think that when I look at the types of projects that I want to work on, I want to do things that are going to be good for the city. And I believe that this is a really good project.
So I don't think we have any other
Yeah,
questions coming in.
I think
Well, Randy, just wanted to thank
Yeah.
you for.
thank you so much for
My
coming.
pleasure.
For
I'm excited you guys are doing this.
Well,
I'd like to encourage other council members and
We're trying.
the
Yeah.
public to participate in this.
and
kind of
we're
process.
gonna improve it by the next.
What we need to
big
do is we need to
project.
figure out how to make this work for the council meetings,
Mm.
so the people who can't show up at a council meeting
Yeah.
Yeah,
can
participate
still,
somehow. Yeah.
either we've got a Twitter stream going
That's
or
what I
something.
thought about, like having like a hashtag, like hashtag Palo Alto City Council or something like that, so that people can. Because the problem that I think a lot of people have is, it's a very expensive area to live in, and usually, both parents have to work to
Right.
afford to live here, and most people move here because of the schools, right? And so they have kids they have to take care of, check homework, all that kind of stuff, and so it's so hard to participate in city government, right? And so this is one reason why, at least for my office here, we were trying big time trying to make it super easy for people to
I
participate.
love it that you're doing this, Greg.
So-
It's terrific. I'm passionate about this stuff, and there's lots of issues that I'd like to participate in, but just can't get to them all. And it would be great to have it be a little more open and accessible. But
So how old are your kids?
I have three. The youngest is 13.
13.
I've got a 17-year-old daughter who's just about to be a senior at Los Altos, and my son graduated from Los Altos just last week and is headed off to college.
Cool. And I think you came here because you were in the middle of a graduation party.
So congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah,
So
there's
who's graduating?
20 people at my house right now.
Was it your daughter that graduated?
It's my son.
Oh,
He's,
your son.
he's
Okay.
headed off to Case Western.
Okay.
I'm
Awesome.
a proud dad.
Okay.
and,
Congratulations.
thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Well,
very
thank you again for taking time out of your personal life to be here.
No, it's important to do, and I'm glad to try and participate in the community's discussion about this, and hopefully to provide accurate information and help people understand what the issues are. And I certainly want people to voice their concerns. I think what I would say to folks in the community who are really concerned about projects being too big is they need to come to the council meetings and talk to
Well,
council
I'm trying to
members
make
about.
Trying to make it easier through
Yeah.
mechanisms like this.
Yeah,
So,
I think that the issue
Uh-huh.
is that if you don't like the zoning, you should work to change the zoning. If you're concerned about the traffic, you should go address the traffic issues
Well-
and solve. There's opportunities to help.
there might be people who will watch this later, and so there might be people who will comment on the stream. So maybe if you see comments or questions on there, I don't know if you'd be open to
Of course.
answering some of those,
Of
just so
course.
that of course it's tomorrow. It's the meeting's tomorrow, so there might not be a lot of
Whatever it is, I'm
Yeah.
I'm happy to be a
Okay.
participant.
awesome.
All right.
Great.
Okay,
Thank you so much for
All right,
coming.
guys.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Walter.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
And
All right.
Okay.
stop.